Good evening. It's 6:30 PM on Monday, June the 24th, 2019, and I now call the Winton City School Board of Education meeting to order. Please turn your cell phones to silent, and then let's rise to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Seymour, would you please call the roll?
Dr. Cupoletti. Here. Mrs. Kuhn.
Present.
Mrs. Douglas.
Present.
Mr. Birdie. Present. Dr. Johns.
Present. Just as a reminder, all the work that we do follows the SMART goals, which are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-sensitive, and that has been established within the district, which includes student achievement, resource alignment, and community engagement goals. Our first item on the agenda this evening is our district honors, recognitions, gifts, and introductions. And I would like to invite Mrs. Paula Kuhn to the podium. And once she takes the podium, Mr. Smith, you will have the floor.
All right, you in position? Ready? All right. Our first gift is it's a gift from $500 in memory of Sid Shah. And is Miss Yatindra here tonight? Mr.?
That's okay.
All right. All right, so come up and tell us a little bit about it.
This award is, or this gift and award is in memory of our son who passed away in 1994 at the age of 14. And he was in the 8th grade in Winton Middle School. All through his school life, he was at Cameron Park, then middle school. So we decided that starting 1995 school year, we have been presenting an award and also this donation to the school district.
Fantastic. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, my wife is here as well. Thank you so much.
Autograph here.
Thank you. This next award is a Community Spirit Award, and this is usually given to an organization that's shown just incredible support for the district in a variety of ways. And this one was selected, this Community Spirit Award was selected by your very own Mrs. Jordan. And not that she's a fan of the product, but she selected Starbucks as the Community Spirit Award. And is Mr. Jason McIntosh here tonight? All right, so that means you have to go get more coffee. We'll put him on next month just to make sure. But Ms. Jordan went into Starbucks the other day and she saw that they had all of our schedules up, all of our events, everything that we're doing in the district. And so it kind of tells you that they are actually a very, very strong supporter of Winton City Schools. So we will definitely make sure that we bring Mr. McIntosh back, which means you have to go in there and get, okay, all right. The other special recognition is for Mr. Hodge. Special recognition, I believe Mr. Hodge has served in the district for, I think the number is, where's Mr. Hodge? How many years, sir? 36 years. All right, so Mr. Hodge, this is your time. You have the mic, sir.
Man, oh man, it's an honor. It's been a long road. Plus, I remember going to school here in the district, getting a job from my counselor. And I started from the summer youth program. And from the summer youth program, to being on the district's payroll, took the civil service test. Here I am. And it's just a blessing to be able to retire. And I'd like to thank the whole Winton Woods district for allowing me to get to that point that that I retired. And I thank all the people I work for. I thank my principal. He's sitting over there, Jeremy Day. And I thank Mr. Smith. And I thank all the board members. And I thank Randy also. And Steve Denny and Dr. Holden, Steve Denny's wife, and who...
Did you say Steve Denny, Dr. Holden was Steve Denny's wife?
See, I said Steve Denny's wife because...
Okay,
she's a part-
I was nervous. I was nervous. Okay, I got it now. Thank you, sir. All right, very good.
I said, Steve Denny's wife because she's a part of the district too.
Yes, she is.
And I wish y'all the best with the new buildings, and may God bless y'all.
All right, thank you. I'm going to invite Ms. Gordon to come up for a minute. And I know that Mr. Hodge is not just the custodian, but he also sits on the negotiation team. And just a little bit about how you work with him and how inspirational he is to the work.
Somebody's gonna say something else for you. Keep honoring you. That's right. Good evening, everyone. Board members, Mr. Smith. Brucey, well, that's what I call him, I'm sorry. He's my brother. Brucey is more than just a custodian to me. He is my brother. He's my union brother. He is my brother in spirit. If there's something that I need done, it's done. I'd be like, Brucey. He'd be like, ah, okay. Bruce has been with the district again 36 years. He has been with the union a long time. If I ever had a problem or I needed an ear to bend, that was an ear. If I needed a shoulder to lean on, that was a shoulder. If I needed to fuss, maybe say a word or two, it wasn't allowed to be said. I could say it here. Wouldn't have to worry about it going anywhere. I just want to say, Brucey, I'm going to miss you.
I'm gonna miss all of y'all.
You have no idea.
Man.
Ohio Association of Public School Employees, which is OC, we would like to honor Brucey with a flag of his retirement. And just letting you know, we're going to miss you.
I'm gonna miss you, man.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Just so that different districts can see how we do it at Winton Woods, can you guys repeat after me? We love you, Brucey.
We love you, Brucey.
All right, there you go. Oh, that's pretty good. That's a new show coming out. Wonderful, amazing. Thank you. Okay, so before you sit down, did you bring family members with you tonight?
Yes.
Okay, they need to come up for a photo.
Come on up for a photo, family.
And then before you sit down, we have one more small proclamation for you. All right, Ms. Wilson.
real quick. So, Mr. Hodge has been with Winton Woods for 39 years.
36.
Oh, well, I've got 39 according to my records, but that's Courtney math. Okay, and so he began at the age of 17 while attending school here. And as we were looking through his personnel files over the last few weeks, I found a work permit signed by your mother, Miss Barbara Ann Hodge, dated 1980. And so it was amazing. So, and he began in 1982 as a sub-custodian and was hired full-time in 1985. And he's worked in that capacity for 34 years. And I tried to add it up. It looked like you worked under 5 superintendents. So he's seen it all. He's been active in the union with the union OPSI, and he's been very instrumental in helping us resolve a number of, little minor conflicts that have come up over the years. And he was on the bargaining team that helped negotiate what will be before the board tonight, the wage and benefit settlement that we reached with OPSI. So as a small token of our appreciation for your 39 years of loyal, committed service to the district, please accept this from the central office staff. We took up a little collection, and this from the district and the Board of Education to thank you. So.
Thank you.
And he's just a wonderful person.
He
Just
is,
very
absolutely.
pleasant and easygoing. We just love you. So good
So
luck
we have
to
to
you.
savor the moment. There's one more opportunity. Other family members, did other family members come in? Okay, let's get the family back up for a bigger picture.
And you got the generations.
Now, that's a beautiful thing.
That's a
Absolutely.
different picture altogether.
Yes.
That is a different
Yeah,
picture.
that's a different picture altogether. You see? Okay, stay, don't move, don't move.
Good babies.
I know, that's a different picture altogether.
You know, Ms. Kuhn, you just blend right in there. You know that? Yes. Did we get it? Very good.
Good. Is that it, Mr. Smith? Is that it? There's one more.
One more?
As you guys know, the teaching and learning director is transitioning on to another assignment. She is exciting, she is innovative, she is incredible, she is miraculous, and it was such a pleasure working with her. So Dr. Holden will be transitioning to Yellow Springs, a neighboring district up north, about 700 students plus, Doc? 720. And when I found out there were 720 students, I asked if we could play them for homecoming, and she says, no, they don't have a football team, so we lost out. But I'd like Dr. Holden to come up and say a few words about her experience, and I learned something new. She's been here 11 years, and this is her longest placement of any time in her career, so we must have done something right. Thank you.
First of all, I just want to say thank you to the board, Mr. Smith, my colleagues. This has been a wonderful ride. You know, I learned the most, I think, during my time here. And it's accurate. This has been the longest, 11 years. So it's sad. I'm excited about a new opportunity. you know, but you get to the point where you think it's time for a new opportunity. But I am sad to leave this district that I've grown to love and who really has loved me in return and given me so much. So I just hope I've given back as much as I've received, because I've received a lot. So I want to say thank you. Hopefully everybody will be gone when I actually leave and walk out, because it will be difficult. So I feel like I've have professional friends and personal friends that I will keep, and I guess if I had any words, keep up the work. It's long and hard, and people expect immediate results, and we know it doesn't work that way. And so what's hard is worth working for. So stay the course. I will miss the kids. I will miss the teachers, the support staff. Bruce, it's been my pleasure to have worked with you. You know, it takes a lot of people in a lot of different roles to make a district work day in and day out. So I've had the pleasure of working with everyone, and truly, I don't think words will express how much that means to me and how much I've grown here. So thank you.
Thank you, Doc. That's it.
That's it, okay. All right, thank you Superintendent Smith, and thank you Mrs. Kuhn. We also like to thank Mr. Yachendra Shaw and the intermediate school custodian, Mr. Bruce Hodges, and Dr. Holden. We wish you well as you transition to Yellow Springs. And the Winton City Schools is made better from your dedication and your service to our district, and we thank you for it. We will now take a 5-minute recess so that we can congratulate our award winners and just say goodbye to Dr. Holden. And so, 5-minute recess. I think so. I don't have any. We'll now resume the board meeting. And for 4.01 for public comments, I don't have any, so we don't have any public comments. So we move right on to 5.01. The Winton Woods Teachers Association representative, you're welcome to the podium. Okay, we don't have anybody here, so we're going to move right on to 5.02, the Ohio Association of Public School Employees, and we have a representative. We welcome Shonda Ferguson to the podium.
Good evening again, board members and Mr. Smith. I just want to say thank you for allowing us to acknowledge Brucey on his retirement. It was a pleasure. I'm telling you, as you see, everyone enjoys Brucey. That's basically all we had to say tonight. Again, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Ferguson. The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes as presented. Board, unless you see any necessary changes, a motion would be in order.
Madam President, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second?
It's been motioned and seconded. Do we have any questions for discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Dr. Cupoletti? Aye. Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mr. Birdie? Aye. Dr. Johnson?
Aye. That vote passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is 7.01, the Treasurer's Report of the financial statements for May 2019. Mr. Seymour, you have the floor.
Yes, for the year-to-date revenues in the general fund, we had 48.4 million. Month-to-date revenues for the general fund were 3.6 million. Most of that was state foundation, and we also received our homestead and rollback. The year-to-date general fund expenditures are 47 million, and we're currently running 3.8 million under budget. All funds had a unencumbered fund balance of 82.5 million, of which 19 million was the general fund, 9 million the building fund, and of course 49.8 million for the classroom facilities.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Seymour. With no objections from the board being heard, the financial statements for the month of May 2019 will be submitted for audit. The next item on the agenda is 8.01, the treasurer's recommendation for the investments for May 2019. We're back to you, Mr. Seymour.
Yes, for the month of May, we had 90 million invested. We earned 128,000 in interest, the general, of which 33,000 was for the general fund and 95,000 for the building fund.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Seymour. Board, a motion would be in order.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the investment report as presented.
Second.
Thank you. It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any questions for discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Dr. Cupoletti?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
And Dr. Johnson.
Aye. That vote passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is 8.02, the financial appropriations resolution for fiscal year 2019. Mr. Seymour, you have the floor.
Yes, this is your final appropriations resolution for the current fiscal year. Typically, it has to be filed with the Budget Commission during the close of the year. And this one pretty much matches the one you approved last month with some minor revisions. And we also will be filing the amended certificate showing that we had the resources to cover the budget.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Seymour. Board, a motion would be in order to approve the final appropriations for fiscal year as well as the certificate of resources.
I'll make a motion to approve the final appropriations for fiscal year 2018-19 as presented.
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Are there any questions for discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Dr. Cupoletti?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Dr. Johnson.
Aye. That vote passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is 8.03, the temporary appropriations resolution for fiscal year 2020. Mr. Seymour?
Here I'm asking for the board to approve a temporary appropriation to give me permission to spend funds until you adopt the final appropriations in August. This is just to allow me to expend funds for payroll benefits and issue contracts for the district. It'll be brought back for finalization in August.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Seymour. Board, a motion would be in order.
I'll make a motion to approve the temporary appropriation resolution for fiscal year 20 as presented.
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Are there any questions for discussion? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Dr. Cupoletti?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Dr. Johnson.
Aye. That vote passes unanimously as well. The next item on our agenda is 9.01, school reports of the superintendent. For the superintendent, Mr. Smith, you have the floor.
Yes, Madam President and Board, I'd like to call up Mrs. Martin, Dr. Ragland, Mr. Denny, Mrs. Denny, and Mrs. Bray. If you guys could come up to the podium. The item that we're going to reflect on the most is about the, I think the public's been hearing about the nutritionist admission bus. And so here are some of the executives who've had the opportunity to be on the bus, and I'd like for them to tell about their experience.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Adrienne Martin, the principal of Winton Woods Elementary School. I had an opportunity to ride the bus on Saturday, and it was amazing. The students we were in Quail Ridge, and they were running through the grass, and they saw me, and they just stopped. And I could tell they stopped breathing because they were like, "That's my principal." I said, "Okay, well, breathe. Keep going and go get your lunch and wear your shoes." So they knew the bus was there. They had to get there, and they were so excited. I didn't really know how it would turn out. I didn't know how excited they would be to see me and Mr. Holman there, but they were so excited. Then we went to the Forest Park Apartments, and they were lined on the sidewalk waiting, and they all kind of looked, and then they just swarmed me. They gave me a hug, we took pictures, they taught me a dance that I still have to practice. I'm not ready for yet. But they were so excited.
We'll see that later.
I know, huh? The whole dance team came out, and then they looked. They were like, "Well, where's Mr. Holman?" I said, "He has an umbrella. You can't see him. He's over there." And they looked at me and they were like, "Okay, well, we saw you now." Then they ran and hugged him. So it does make a difference. It was amazing, and I am looking forward to doing it again.
Problem.
Very good.
Hi, I'm Dr. Ragland, Supervisor of Curriculum Instruction, Department of Teaching and Learning, and I was on the bus the very first Saturday. I don't think they were quite prepared for us to be there that very first time, but when they found out we were there, they came out, they were excited, and so much so they wanted to know if we were coming on Sunday.
There you go.
So we said no, but we'll be back again next Saturday and throughout the week. So I enjoyed it because I got to see some of the little ones and some of them bring their older brothers and sisters.
Very good.
Hello, I'm Tanya Bray, Director of Student Services. So I was with Dr. Ragland the first trip, and ditto what the first two mentioned. However, I just think it's a great opportunity for our kids to be able to be fed on the weekends. Our kids need it. We do have an area where students would not have the opportunity to be fed had it not been for this bus. So nutrition is the mission, is just a wonderful opportunity for all of our kids in district who attend our schools, and those kids who live in our district who don't attend our schools. They were able to partake as well. So not only is it fun to see them just kind of collaborate and be with the teachers and the people who they see on a daily basis, but other kids that live in a district who would not otherwise have the opportunity. So I just think it's something great moving forward and for years to come.
So I'll first of all just say, and I'm Steve Denny, by the way, I'm Director of Business Affairs for the district, but it is a fantastic way to spend a Saturday morning. I recommend it to any staff member, anyone that's so inclined to participate in that. So we're actually up to, at the Forest Park Apartment stop on Dewdrop, we're up to 70 students. We had 70 students earlier this week, and they had 60 at Quail, which is 130 between two stops. So we're now pushing in on around between 160 and 170 students a day. And we just hope as word of mouth and consistency continues that number continues to climb. I did have one young man tell me that I look like Captain America, which I really appreciated that. I don't think that's accurate, but I quietly slipped him a 20 spot and said thank you. No, I didn't. But it was a fantastic experience, and it's a great reminder of why you do what you do.
Absolutely.
You know, it kind of just stares you right in the face. Here's all these young people that are, having the opportunity to have another nutritious meal, and this time even on a Saturday. So I think it's a blessing to be a part of it, and it was just a great opportunity. So I appreciate the chance to do it.
Good evening, Board. I'm Karina Denny, the Community Engagement Coordinator for the district. And the two things I'd like to add, I'd love to echo their comments on what a great way it was to spend the morning. But just as a reminder to our community, we added the YMCA Powell Crosley to our list this year, and that's in Springfield Township. So make sure you get out there and take advantage of that. And the second thing is, I promise, I didn't know Steve was going to say that, but you may see some superheroes if you come on Saturday. So I'm just putting that out there. So if you come on Saturday, you may see some superheroes. But remember, it's Monday through Saturday, and we have 4 stops. You can go to wintonwoods.org/summer meals to get all the details. Thank you.
Thank you. When this conversation started, and I came to the executive team and also the administrators and mentioned that we need to be part of our community in a variety of ways, not just when it's time for levies, but when it's time to just share the thoughts and ideas. Not one person frowned on the content of it. They were eager, they were excited about it, and I am excited that the board members are also going to plan to be part of the experience. So thank everybody for giving back to the community. I think our little ones really, really appreciate it. The high school kids are not embracing it as much, but they will get there. Mr. Martin kind of told me a story that when they saw Mrs. Martin, they ran to her. When they saw him, they ran away. So I don't know what that's about, but maybe they can kind of get acclimated to his presence. All right, thank you folks very,
Yes.
very much.
Dr. Cupoletti wanted to add something.
While you're still there, last week I had the opportunity to stop by the Green Hills stop, and there were approximately 17 young people there. And it may be unusual for Green Hills, but I noted that the most needy of our students were there. And it was obvious that
That's good.
it's doing something very valuable for people who are disabled, etc. And so thank you very much.
Yeah, we had mentioned, I think every district, at least most of them, have free meals where you can come to a school and get a free meal. Unfortunately, some of our kids live too far away. So taking the bus to the students was the right thing to do.
Yes.
So, bravo. Yes.
Very good. That
Okay.
deserves a
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
That's the main
awesome.
part of the
That's-
report, Doc.
That's a good feel. That's
Yes,
a
it is.
feel-good story. I like that. Okay, the next item on our agenda is 9.02, the Certificate of Standards governing types of food and beverages sold on school premises. And, Board, there's a memo in our agenda there that explains the Ohio Revised Code 3313.814 on child nutrition. But Mr. Smith, you have the floor to explain.
Yes, Madam President and Board. I'd like to read something that came from Thomas Ben, who's the Southwest Ohio School and Summer Nutrition Manager of the Children's Hunger Alliance. Mr. Denny and Mr. Doctor went to Columbus recently to testify about why it's important to have nutritious meals for students. And this is the letter that he wrote in direction to Mr. Denny and Mr. Doctor. For the last 2 years, I've had the pleasure of working with Mark Doctor at several of the buildings in your school district. He has been open to new ideas for expanding breakfast and summer food service. More importantly, Mark has developed his own innovative vision of what food service should look like for students. He has developed an aggressive program to reach all students in the shortest period of time. Breakfast participation continues to climb each school year. His plans are well thought out, and he implements new plans quickly to reach more students. A recent example of this has been the expansion of the summer food program. Mark Doctor has transformed what summer food service should look like in the Winton Woods City School District. The bus preparation time was an unbelievable turnaround. As a result, you not only feed children on campus, but also in the outlying communities of the district. I had the opportunity to make a few site visits last summer to see the operation, and I was very impressed. Mark will be taking that to a new and higher level this summer. The result of his work led to the school district northwest of Columbus, who heard about the bus conversion to drive here to your district to tour the bus and see it in action, delivering food to needy children. As an agency, we concentrate on feeding as many children as possible. The goal is not only met at Winton Woods, but I see the introduction of new food items and more wholesome foods becoming available to the students. Mark is challenging the cooks to display and serve foods that are not only appealing to the students, but also provide higher quality nutritional needs that young bodies need. With the direction of Mark Doctor, Winton Woods City Schools has become a model program for food service in the school district. Winton Woods has become a frequent name at our Columbus agency office because of the fast pace and innovative ideas being introduced to your students. We as an agency look forward in the coming years in expanding this partnership with your district. Sincerely, Thomas Ben. Yes, very good.
Mr. Smith, can I ask now, Thomas Ben is, who is he?
Thomas Ben is the Summer Nutrition Manager for the Children's Hunger Alliance.
Okay, very good. I just want to say that kudos to the staff, to the leadership, to the vision of that, because, I see a lot of nutrition programs being highlighted on the news about, oh, we're doing all these great things, but you all are doing it, or we're doing it, and just focus on the work and not necessarily promotion of ourselves. It's just seeing the kids and touching the kids in the community. So that feels really good. So thank you so much.
Bravo. Bravo to Mr. Denny as well. Thank you, sir.
Of course, Board, this content is meant to keep us informed and aware, and we have all already volunteered 1 or 2 days or whatever we volunteered for the Nutrition is the Mission bus. And to add to Mrs. Rugglas's comments, our district takes serving food and nutrition to the students of this district very seriously. And it's evidenced by the forward thinking that has come about with the Nutrition of the Mission is the Mission bus. And you can only applaud something on that magnitude. It's just a great opportunity to service the students of the district who are out of school and may not, like Mr. Smith said, you can come, a lot of schools have the opportunity for the kids to come to the building to get the food, but if you can't get to the building, you can't get to the food. So when the food goes to them, it makes a world of difference. So we just want to thank everyone, thank Mr. Smith and Mr. Doctor for having that forward thinking, and the whole team that come together to make that happen. It's just wonderful. Okay, let's move on to the next item on the agenda is 9.03, the facilities update. And I believe probably Mr. Denny is going to do the presentation, but Mr. Smith,
Yes, sir.
you have the floor.
You're up.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, and good evening again, Board. Good evening, everyone. So we have a lot of progress. You've probably noticed on the construction projects that we're blessed to have going on right now in the district. I do have a paper copy that I'll be happy to distribute, but I just thought for sake of folks that might be in the audience as well as anyone watching from home, this update that I'm about to share is on our website. It's updated weekly. And if you navigate to www.wintonwoods.org and you go to the lower right-hand corner and click on Construction Update, you will see a plethora of information, really, but the first blue link you see is Weekly Blitz. You can click that and get a copy of what I'm about to hand out just for easier reference for the board. So what you're seeing in the photos is really starting to look a lot like what the finished building will begin to appear to form into. They do work from the inside out, so when you see the large structure in the middle, it's the innermost room, if you will. So that's the middle school gym in the 712 that you can see right out there. And what they're going to begin to do, I believe, either end of this week or beginning of next, weather permitting, is start to lay structural steel. So you'll start to see steel joists go across the top of that, and then imagine that replicated about 30 more times or so, and then that will flesh out the building of sorts. So this is one of the largest interior volume spaces. That core group of spaces in the 712 is the middle school gym. Just north of that is the 712 arena, the competition gym as we sometimes refer to it. Just south of that is the auditorium, just south of that is the music wing. So those core spaces will be built out, and then you'll start to see, in fact, you can see it in this top photo, those are academic wing spaces beginning to take shape. The north half of that was 300 yards of concrete. The south half of that was another 290 yards of concrete. So these are big buildings, but they're coming along nicely. They're on schedule. We're still on budget. Our contingencies are in pretty good shape, so we're not having a lot of unforeseen events that are eating contingency, which is good. The more we save contingency, the more value adds we can buy as we go along. So we're certainly pleased with that. This corridor here, I believe, is between the middle school gym, the locker rooms, and the locker rooms are on this side, but the horrible term, it's called the vomitory. You probably, I did not hear this term until I got into this, but it's right here. That is comes out through the bleachers inside the competition gym. So our home team can process through like you would see at a home football game, for example. So it's kind of a cool thing. And it makes the gym incredibly functional. It is the worst term, but it's a very great idea. So it's locker rooms on that side, and you can see the poured concrete floor. So it's starting to approach things that we might recognize as a school. The K-6 is also proceeding rapidly. Started about a week behind the high school. It's now about a week ahead of the high school. Some of that is size. It is a slightly smaller building. This is 206,000 square feet as opposed to the high school, which is 245,000 square feet. The first floor footprint is about 160,000 square feet, roughly in that neighborhood. But you can see slab being poured. And again, we've got structural steel, so you can see that. That is the self-contained gym, or the large gym in the K-6 building that's being constructed. That school also has 2 gymnasiums just because of the size of the building. So it's coming along nicely. We're very excited, and hope you can get a chance to check it out. So.
Yes, Mr. Denny, I can see the board voting and having a resolution to change that vomitory name. I can see that coming.
That sounds like a great
I can
move.
see that happening.
Yeah, it's kind of an awful term. Let's not call it that.
The war room or something, I don't know.
All right.
Good, sir.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Thank you, Mr. Denny. Again, this is just meant for informational purposes, board, keeping us up to date. I'm glad those pictures are out there, though, because it does show, like, every time you drive by or whatever, you see something else, it's like, oh, look, it's something else, so it's really cool. All right, so the next item on the agenda is 10.01, and board, a motion to move into executive session would be in order for us to discuss the contract negotiations, and we will come back out and vote. We will go into private session, and then we'll come back out to vote. So I'll entertain that motion at this time.
I make a motion to go into executive session for contract negotiations.
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Dr. Cupoletti?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggless?
Aye.
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Dr. Johnson?
Aye. Okay, we'll move into executive session, or we'll just move into that room there, and we'll come back out. So if you guys want to take a break while we're in there, that's fine, and we'll come back out. Come back out. We're going to call the executive session over at, what time is it there? 7:49 p.m. Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Roll.
Roll?
Yes.
Sorry.
That's okay.
We're not voting yet,
Dr.
promise you.
Cupoletti?
Present.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Present?
Mrs. Ruggless?
Present.
Mr. Birdie?
Present.
Dr. Johnson?
Present. Okay, now the next item on the agenda is 10.01 under Superintendent's recommendation for personnel schedules. And Superintendent Smith, you have the floor.
Yes, Board and President, the recommendation is to approve Schedule A, resignations, Schedule B, personnel employment certificated, Schedule C, personal employment support staff, Schedule D, personal employment certificated and non-certificated, including extra duties, and finally, Schedule E, leaves. The recommendation is to approve the schedules as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Board, a motion would be in order to approve the personnel schedules A, B, C, D, and E.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the personnel schedules A through E.
Second?
Thank you. It's been motioned and seconded. Are there any questions for discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Dr. Cupoletti?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggless?
Aye.
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Dr. Johnson?
Aye.
Seeing that you've approved the personnel schedules, I'd like to invite 2 employees who are transitioning into new positions, Dr. Tamara Ragland and Mrs. Adrian Martin, to come to the podium, please. They don't have to be sworn in or anything. They just have to promise to do everything that I say. All right?
Good evening, Mr. Smith and Winton Woods School Board, and I'm Dr. Tamara Ragland, and I would like to say thank you for the opportunity to serve the district in my new capacity. I'm looking forward to the coming years of service. I think that Winton Woods is not just a place, it's a people. And I think that we have some of the most talented people that I've ever worked with in my 25 years of education. So I'm excited. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Adrienne Martin, and I'm definitely excited to transition into my new role. It's bittersweet. I'm gonna miss the kids on a daily basis, but I'm gonna make sure that I stay connected. The goal is, I used to tell my staff to work on the work to wow me every day. So I'm gonna continue to work on the work. And now I'm not only working with my colleagues, but through my colleagues. So to continue to move forward in what's already been established. So I'm definitely excited and I think I've already tapped a little bit into what the work is going to entail. So I'm definitely excited about what's to come. So thank you for this opportunity. And as I led ES with integrity, I will continue to lead the teaching and learning with integrity as well.
Yes, and thank you, Dr. Holden, again for your transition and your leadership. Mrs. Martin will be serving the district as the Director of Teaching and Learning for preschool to 6th grade, and Dr. Ragland, 7 through 12. So thank you. Welcome. Awesome. Mrs. Martin, I'm sure you're aware that officially you are Mr. Martin's boss, so you know what to do. Just thought I'd clarify that, just to make sure.
Is that legal?
To be clear.
I don't even know how to follow that.
Part of my script, I wrote that down.
Yes. That's part of his strengths, to keep you speechless. Okay.
10.02,
Anyway,
Doc.
thank you, ladies, Mrs. Martin and Dr. Ragland. You have served us well, and we look forward to what you'll bring into these new positions as well. So we appreciate your work that you do for the district and look forward to you moving into these new roles and, tackling those as well. The next item on the agenda is 10.02, which is the exempt employees' salary schedules and step placement. Mr. Smith, you have the floor.
Yes, the recommendation, Board and President, is to approve the exempt salary schedule effective July 1st, 2019, and the step placement for all exempt employees as recommended.
Okay, Board, a motion would be in order.
Madam President, I'll make a motion to approve the exempt salary schedule effective July 1st, 2019, and the step placement for all exempt employees as recommended.
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Are there any questions for discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Dr. Cupoletti?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggless?
Aye.
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Dr. Johnson?
Aye. That vote passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is 10.03, which is the administrative salary schedules. Mr. Smith, back to you.
Yes, Madam President and Board, the recommendation is to approve the certificated administrative and classified administrative salary schedules as presented. Administrative salary schedule effective 8/1 of 2019, and the classified administrative salary schedule effective 8/1 of 2019 as well.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Board, a motion would be in order.
I make a motion to approve the certificated administrative and and classified administrative salary schedules as presented.
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Are there any questions for discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Dr. Cupoletti?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggless?
Aye.
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Dr. Johnson?
Aye. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is 10.04, which is the administrative salaries. Superintendent Smith, you have the floor.
Yes, Madam President and Board, to approve the annual salary of certificated and classified administrative employees for the August 1st, 2019 through July 31st, 2020 contract as recommended.
Thank you. Board, a motion would be in order.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the annual salary of the certificated and classified administrative employees for the August 1st, 2019 through July 31st of 2020. Contract as recommended.
That's 10.04. A motion,
I'll second.
thank you. It's been motioned and seconded. Are there any questions for discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, please call that vote.
Dr. Kupoletti?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Dr. Johnson?
Aye. The next item on the agenda is 10.05, which is the stipend for the certified and classified administration. Mr. Smith, you have the floor.
Yes, Madam President and Board, before I ask the Board to approve this stipend, I just would like to check with the treasurer to make sure that the classified administrators is correct. 1250?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, we agreed.
Yes, thank you, sir. I just want to make sure my notes say the same. All right, so the recommendation is to approve a stipend for all current administrators who were employed prior to January 1st, 2018 as follows. Certificated administrators, $1,500 as a one-time stipend, and classified administrators, $1,250 as a one-time stipend. The stipend will be paid on June 28th, 2019.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Board, a motion will be in order.
I'll make a motion to approve a stipend for all current administrators who were employed prior to January 1st, 2018 as follows. Certified administrators, $1,500. Classified administrators, $1,250. And the stipend will be paid on June 28th, 2019.
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Are there any questions for discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Sure. Dr. Kupoletti?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Dr. Johnson?
Aye. That vote passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is 10.06, which is the uniform policy for 2019-2020 school year. Superintendent Smith, you have the floor.
Yes, Madam President and Board. The recommendation is to approve the uniform policy for 2019-2020 school year as presented. Please keep in mind, the principals have the discretion of having Spirit Day as they so fit to see it. As long as the students are dressed in Winton Woods attire, we've given them that leverage to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Board, a motion would be in order to approve this.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the uniform policy for the 2019-2020 school year as presented.
Second?
It's been motioned and seconded. Are there any questions for discussion?
Mrs. Ruggles, second?
Yes,
Yes.
Mrs.
Thank you.
Ruggles, I'm sorry.
There weren't any changes other than the
No,
date,
sir.
right?
Yeah, and that's the other point I was gonna make. It was basically the same
Stayed the
policy.
same.
Yes, same policy.
Yeah. And also just to mention that the adoption of the uniform policy is something that just keeps the students all on the same level playing field.
Absolutely it
We don't
does.
have to have designer this or designer that. Nobody has to feel bad about coming to school because they don't have those designer clothes. So it's a good policy and we should certainly.
Totally improves attendance.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, are there any other questions for discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Dr. Kupoletti?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
And Dr. Johnson?
Aye. That vote passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is 10.07, which is the Winton Woods Teachers Association contract. Mr. Smith, you have the floor.
The recommendation, Board, is to approve the Winton Woods Teachers Association contract as presented.
Okay, Board, a motion will be in order.
I'll make a motion to approve the Winton Woods Teachers Association contract as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been motioned and seconded. Are there any questions for discussion?
Yes. I understand that we need to do this now in order to meet the window for planned design changes for our health care. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Mr. Seymour and Mr. Smith, would you like to add anything to that?
That is accurate, Madam President.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions for discussion? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Dr. Cupoletti?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
And Dr. Johnson.
Aye. That vote passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is 10.08, which is the Ohio Association of Public School Employees, OPSI contract. Superintendent Smith, you have the floor.
Yes, Madam President and Board, the recommendation is to approve the Ohio Association of Public School Employees, better known as OPSI, contract as presented.
I would entertain a motion at this time.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Ohio Association of Public School Employees, OPSI, the contract as presented.
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Are there any questions for discussion?
Yes, once again, I understand we need to do this now in order to meet the window for plan design changes for our health care plans.
And that's correct again. Anything else? Saying nothing, Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Dr. Cupoletti?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Dr. Johnson.
Aye. The next item on the agenda is 10.09, which is the Scarlet and Gray contract. I believe.
Yeah.
Mr. Smith, you have the floor.
Yes, ma'am. The Director of Business Affairs sent a document for your review. I believe it was close to a week ago, so that you could be up to speed with the terms and conditions of Scarlet and Gray, who is actually our custodial provider at this time. So, Mr. Denny, would you like to come up, please?
Thank you, Mr. Smith, and thank you again, Board. Good evening as well, again. I appreciate the opportunity to share some information with you about our custodial services in the district, the bulk of which is provided by the contract services provider, Scarlet and Gray. So we'll just kind of launch right into this. I thought I'd start with some background, and you should have received, actually a week ago today, a report that just summarizes the contract, the terms, some of the basic terms, the scope. But I thought I'd go through in a little more detail. And this is a conversation, so I invite you to please feel free to ask questions as we go if questions occur to you. And of course, at the end, we can have more of that if it pleases the board. So just in terms of the background, by the way, would you like a paper copy of the report? You want me to just hang on to it? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
I have the presentation as well if you'd care for it. I know I'm supposed to be saving paper. I apologize.
I'll take it.
Is that the one that you sent us? I didn't print it out, I just read it. But since you've already printed it, we'll take it.
I know. You tell me if you want me to stop doing this kind of thing. I'm happy to. I just, I feel like, you might want to have it at easy reference for yourselves at the ready. But if we take a look at just the background, this actually, if we rewind the clock, this goes back to 2010, Board of Education at the time. And the context, by the way, was right after the Great Recession, the second most challenging financial period in our nation's modern history. The housing bubble burst, and of course the time lag as it hit the districts, public districts all over the country, including Ohio, about 2 years later. So in 2010, the board actually said, take a look at all the operational areas. If we can save money, let's do it. It turned out that the only one, after analysis in terms of transportation, food service, maintenance, and custodial, the only one that truly made financial sense was custodial. And so we proceeded with bargaining the effects of the outsourcing that is required under collective bargaining laws in Ohio. And of course, our contract reflects that. And out of that, we had 5 firms indicate interest, and one of them rose to the top, and it was Scarlet and Gray. Scarlet and Gray cleans, I believe it's 9 different public school districts in our area: Norwood, Oak Hill, St. Bernard, Mount Healthy. There's 9 of them, and it's about 70 school buildings. And they are an ISSA, which is International Sanitary Supply Association green cleaning certified firm. So the cleaning products supposedly you can drink. That's true for our custodial as well, but I would not recommend that. But they are clean. They're environmentally safe. They're mostly hydrogen peroxide based. I know, I'm sorry. Random facts. I apologize. But the purpose of tonight is really to take a look not only at our operation in a larger context, but also, do you ever disrupt your own lesson plan, teachers? I think that's what I just did. Contract renewal for a 2-year term. So we're in an interesting point in our district right now where we are about ready to exit our current state of being, our current way of operating. We have these 6 frontline schools, we have 4 support facilities, and we're about to embark on a journey where we end up with 2 very large consolidated buildings. It's really going to change the way we do business in a variety of ways, but including in the operational sense. So I thought it might be useful for you to understand just some of the scope of what we do as well as what Scarlett provides. Scarlett and Gray does provide services for all 6 frontline school facilities. It's 174 days, which is the standard 180-ish school days without the PD days and some of the days where students are not in session. They also perform summer deep cleaning services for several of our facilities. In fact, most now. Primary South Community Building, Central Office is us, actually, and the bus garage is also us. They service about 494,000 square feet of buildings, about 80% of which is cleanable. They also provide day porters for 215 days a year for all of our schools except for Primary South and the community building. And then they supplement that with part-time cleaning, which is something our district does not do. Most public districts do not. They also have one area supervisor and 2 supervisors, one for the Forest Park schools and one for the schools south of Sharon Road, which is one of the reasons we selected them above some of the other firms, is their supervision model is superior to the other firms. In terms of cost, this is the cost of the contracts. It is not a small amount of money, but it is also not cheap to provide custodial services. When we used to do it ourselves, I'll share with you how much that used to cost the district. I'll also share with you how much it would be if we did it again ourselves, just in-house. And hopefully that will add some flavor as to why you're being asked to approve such large sums of money in a contract. Anything over $500,000 requires the board approval directly. And of course, you empower the treasurer to approve other contracts that are of a lesser amount. So for 2019-2020, you can see the amount reflected there, and that is a 2.5% increase from 18-19, which is fairly modest and fairly approximately the cost of inflation. 2020-2021, you can see a 2% increase over the baseline year coming into this year. So I mentioned 2 years. That 2 years takes us into the realm of the new buildings. We have to completely hit the reset switch on everything when the new buildings come. Operations, maintenance, and custodial cleaning. These buildings are very different than what we currently have. There's a lot of glass surfaces. The flooring is different. The way we're going to operate these buildings is different, will require different levels of cleaning. What we can't have is brand new buildings that don't look like brand new buildings. That is the absolute worst thing, and we will not engage in that type of operational planning. So, Mr. Smith?
So, Mr. Denny, you're recommending that for the current buildings that where we are now, that Scarlett and Gray would be the contractual custodial group, but they would not automatically transition into the new building.
That's correct, yes,
Okay.
sir.
All
Right. So I think at the given time, and hopefully I'll be able to provide enough information for you to allow you to peek into what I see, so that you understand the thinking and the rationale and why it is a benefit, especially financially, to the district to do so. But when we get to 2021, we're going to have to really look at some things differently. And I've got a slide to show some future steps, and we can talk about that as well. But I did want to note that part of the large cost you see in there now includes 5 full-time custodians. So we have 5 FTEs provided by Scarlett and Gray, because did you see in the first background slide that we talked about having to negotiate the effects of outsourcing? Well, one of those requirements that we performed under state law was being sure that as our custodians were retained, we retained all of our head custodians, but as they retired, it would only be until they retired that we'd replace them. So our runner from Mr. Hodge that I've worked with for 20 years is retiring tonight. He will be replaced, in the current scheme of things, the way we negotiated with the union and the way the contract with Scarlett is structured. He would be replaced by a Scarlett and Gray day porter. And that's happened numerous times since 2011 when the outsourcing took place. So that's why that piece is important. And it's also why the cost is high. And I'll get to what these folks cost here in just a moment. It's also important to note that there are a lot of other related things tied to custodial. I'll move as quickly through this as I can. I know it's not the most riveting material in the world. But cleaning chemicals, uniforms, mop heads, cleaning supplies, equipment, the buffers, the vacuums, all of that, the Kyvacs, all those specialized pieces of equipment, we don't actually provide any longer. We have not provided equipment like that since 2010. So that's part of the operational savings as well, and it's reflected in some of the estimates that I've provided. Next slide, please. So just taking a look at some comparison costs, this is one of the reasons that Scarlett leverages financial savings for the district. They use an average salary. They don't actually use steps and things like that, even though people might be compensated different. When they charge a district for a contracted service, this year it's $45,150. That's a full-time FTE, 8-hour employee. The cheapest we can do it, that's step 0, so that's the very first year, including benefits, is the top figure you see. So it's
Mr.
about,
Denny,
sir, yes.
we don't pay benefits for the Scarlet?
It's in the cost.
It's in the cost.
Yes,
Very
sir.
good.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So yeah, all in, that's a custodian for them. All in cheapest, that's a custodian for us. And part of that is the difference between public-private. Part of it is union versus not and things of that nature. So there's always trade-offs in that.
So I have another question. Within the 2-year scope, the Scarlet and Gray contract, the full-time custodian, which includes benefits, would that $45,150 increase within the 2-year scope?
Yes, it will go up to whatever's negotiated in the contractual agreement. So that $45,250 would go up, 150, excuse me, would go up 2%.
In what year?
Going into the second contract year.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't have that number with me, but it's 2% more than that one. So this is part of what happens. So as a custodian retires, they're typically very experienced. And I'll show you some numbers in a bit where you'll see a budget come up one year and then go down the next year for our overall custodial costs. So not just Scarlett's cost, but all of our costs, because we still do have custodial employees as well, although very few of them now. We now have 2 custodians in the entire district. So next slide. This is harder for me to see on what I'm looking at, so I'm going to step out for a moment here. This shows just basic scenarios of what would it cost if we did this ourselves. And so it kind of looks at it in 2 different ways. There's 4 slides, and this was in your report you received last week if you got a chance to review that. But just for the sake of review and also just to share with anyone that might be watching at home as well as people in the audience, I'm basically looking at this in 2 ways. You can workload the district. If you do that, you come out with 24 custodial positions. That's based on best practice. It's also based on how districts around us staff. About 25,000 square feet is pretty ideal as far as best practice for you might have 1 custodian for every 25,000 square feet. So when you look at that, it comes out to 7 day porters for our facilities and also 17 full-time custodians for a total of 24 employees. And you can see the cost there. And then there's all of the other costs that I mentioned that are also ancillary but related and necessary. Things like uniforms and substitute costs and overtime costs that you run into, cleaning equipment, purchasing cleaning supplies, all of that.
So, Mr. Denny,
sir.
you mentioned 7 day porters, 17 custodians, 24 employees. So what is the difference between a day porter and a custodian?
Yeah, great question.
I could feel them breathing down my neck down here trying to ask. They wanted me to ask that question.
Thank you so much. No, I please check me because I'll throw these terms out. I apologize. So a day porter is in sort of another, we typically refer to them as head custodians.
Yes.
It's interchangeable. They're the person that works during the day. Now, from an efficiency standpoint, they're clean up on aisle 5. They're delivering things. They're early in the morning to unlock. They're there to arm things later. They're kind of a jack of all trades, but they're the frontline employee that services the children while the children are present and the staff is present. So there's a limited amount of cleaning they can do, but if you design it correctly, you can leverage the time that they're there early to allow them to clean some rooms. And that way you reduce your overall FTE. So this includes that, but they can't clean the standard 25,000 square feet. They're really going to clean more like, if you're really pushing it, 8,000, something like that, 8 to 10, and that's pushing it. But they also clean and reset the cafeteria, and they're really important for the culture of the school, actually. So workloading the district correctly, we should have a minimum of 24 custodians, 7 of whom are head custodians. They are compensated slightly different. I think they're paid, it's like 45 cents more an hour or something like that per the contract, whatever the OPSI contract specifies. So to do that all in, and these other numbers are 2011 levels just adjusted for inflation, it's about $2 million. It's over double what we're spending right now total with not just Scarlet, but even our employees put together. So it's a big nut to try to swing on our own. The next one, this is in-house scenario 1. So I'm sorry, I apologize. This is likely scenario range. So when you go out and hire people, it's one person might have 5 years experience, one person might have 12, one person might have 0 years experience. So likely salary range, right size, 24 people, salaries as they probably would happen in real life. The next scenario is similar, but slightly different. Next slide. That's okay. It's the cheapest we could do it, but right sized. So let's say that we went out and somehow were able to procure and find all people with no experience whatsoever. That's a different problem, but let's say we could do that.
That's a bigger problem, sir.
Yes, sir. But still right size. So we got the right number of people. They're just not the most experienced professionals for cleaning in the world. 1.7 million. So it's still quite a bit higher. And this is also what I would call an unlikely scenario. And you still have all the other ancillary costs. And I forgot to mention that if you had 17 custodians in cleaning in the evening, you'd have some third shift here at the high school. You'd have some second shift at other buildings. You need somebody in the evening to help supervise them. That's not even built into this. I would estimate about 90,000 for that. So this is sort of a minimum number, if you will. The next scenario, in-house scenario 3, next slide, thank you, would be likely salary but going to minimum staffing. Oh, yeah, Ms. Ruggles?
So for scenario 2, where you said add evening supervisor at 90,000.
Yes, ma'am.
That's including benefits?
Yeah, the 90 would definitely
Okay,
include
'cause
benefits.
I was in the wrong job. Just wanted to let you know.
Yeah, definitely would include benefits.
Okay.
And honestly, we might be able to get them for a little cheaper if they weren't very experienced, but you typically tend to hire experienced people to be supervisors so that they can direct the folks that
And
they're supposed to be in
how
charge
many,
of.
Head custodians do we have? You said we only have 2?
We have 2. Both are classified as head custodians, yes. Because that's all, when we outsourced, that's all we had left.
Right.
Everything else was outsourced. And then as those folks retired, the agreement with the union was, we'll certainly honor those people and have them be a part of the Wentwood's family and the contract.
Right.
As they retired, only then will we replace them with outsourced services. So scenario 3 is likely salary, but going to minimum staffing. And this is the smallest number of custodians I would, in good conscience, recommend. We have gone lower than this in this district. It did not go well. I don't know if we ever caught up from going to that level for 2 years. The district years ago had 33 custodians. If you go back, 25, 30 years, then it went to 25, then 23, then 18, then 13, and then we outsourced. And it was all just to save money. And people would say, we know it's not the best thing to do, but we're trying to save the dollars. And we would rather cut here than cut instructional staff, which is hard to argue with. But there's certainly, a balance to all of this. So this is 18 total employees. It's still the 7 head custodians, but it's 11 custodians spread across the district. And everybody's cleaning jumps from about 25,000 square feet to over 40,000 square feet. So you get less quality is what happens. This is the minimum I would recommend, however, and the cost comes in at about 1.6 million. Next slide. The last one is the scenario where you go to minimum staffing and you try to hire all beginners. So this is all step 0, minimum staffing. This would probably be a really bad thing to do. I could not recommend this, but I just wanted to throw out some options and look at ranges and look at possibilities and what would it look like. So this is 18 employees, but all step 0, and it comes out to be about 1.4 million. As you'll see in a moment, we're basically all in now for about under $1 million still. And that number fluctuates a little bit, but I'll share that data with you as well. Next slide. And here it is. So this is custodial program costs going back to FY11. Yes, it bothers me that 16, 17, 18 are missing. It probably will bother you as well. Mr. Smith and I already talked about this. We looked at this really heavily. I, in particular, spent a lot of time analyzing data after we outsourced because I really wanted to know if it was saving dollars. So I cross-checked it every year for about 4 years. And it basically was saving us money compared to our base year of 11. That's before we outsourced. 12 is after outsourcing. So it saved a little south of $300,000 when we outsourced, which was the equivalent then of about 5 teachers. And that was the tension, because during that time frame, as some of you may recall, we cut 72 positions in about 3 years, and it was extremely painful to try to live that, and it was more painful for the people going through it, obviously. So you can see the costs going down, and then you'll see it pop back up in 15. It actually goes up and down from what I've seen based on how many retire that year and how many are replaced. And you saw the numbers, right? There's about a $10,000 difference between their employees versus ours. And so that can drive some of the fluctuation you're seeing here. Other things that vary are how many gyms we clean in a given summer and things of that nature. Dr. Cupoletti?
Yes. So you're in fiscal year 2019 now.
Yes, sir.
And presumably the cost for Scarlet and Gray was 700 and something.
Yes, sir.
What is the $300,000 difference, considering you only have 3 custodians in 2019?
It's, I don't know if I have the detail on that or not. Well, first of all, the number that you see there for FY19 is 5 employees. We had 1 leave midway through the year. We lost 2 going into FY20.
Okay, so it's actually more custodians, about 5 of them.
In 19.
Right.
In 20, we're at 2.
So that adds up the 250,000.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's the difference.
Thank you.
And some of this, I'm sorry, Mr. Smith, I didn't.
Yeah, that's the difference that
You're right.
Dr. Cupoletti was calculating in his
Yes,
brain.
the wheels,
Yes,
yes. And 19 's still a projection because we're not through the year. It's not through last payroll, so I don't have all the fun, but I was able to project based on how many payrolls we'd already had, and I'm pretty confident in that number. FY20 is a budgetary placeholding figure, but includes Scarlett's contract, includes our own custodial staff, includes our supplies. So we spend about 70,000 in custodial supplies in a year. I cut it back 10,000 this year because we're trying to tighten the belt. But we're south of $1 million, which if you adjust FY11 up for inflationary dollars, that's not adjusted. Those are FY11 dollars. You can see we're actually quite a bit cheaper than FY11 even now. So we are saving dollars. It's something that I think is worth considering. Next slide shows just a visual representation of that. And you can see that the trend between 15 and 19 basically fluctuates between about 930,000 and $1 million. It just moves, based on what the activities were that year, how much overtime, how much cleaning we did during the summer, how many gyms we did, things of that nature.
What year did Scarlet and Gray start?
FY12. Fiscal year 12, 2011, 2012.
On the previous slide, can I miss why you don't have 16, 17, and 18?
Yeah, I didn't drill down and really, this takes about a day per fiscal year to really pull all that together, and I didn't spend that kind of time after 15 because I was pretty confident we were saving money. I was really drilling down every year to find out, look, we did this. Was this the right move? And there's mixed feelings about it, to be honest with you, because we don't have some employees that we used to have, but we're saving a lot of dollars. And transportation did not make sense.
No.
Maintenance did not make sense. Food service, if it's running correctly, you should never have to outsource that because it's supposed to be financially independent of general fund to begin with. So the only one that made any sense financially was this particular operational area.
And the one
While
thing
it might-
excuse me, go ahead.
Well, it might, I can understand why you have mixed feelings behind it, because sometimes the custodians are really connecting with our children. They're, building that relationship, so you do sacrifice that human touch
Right.
by saving money. So you can see when Brucey left
Right.
today, just that connection that he had with employees. That's, you
Right.
can never underestimate that.
Mr. Sam at the high school is another example
Yes.
of Mr. Woods. I mean, it's just
Yes.
stellar human being.
Is he still here?
No, he retired
he
maybe 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example. At North, I get a lot of positive feedback about the Scarlet full-timer at North. Here's the catch. He won't be there for 30 years. Those are the kind of pros and cons you can talk about. To your point.
Yeah, but in how whomever moving forward, that that we bring in to service our schools, they need to understand that they are coming into a culture of a supportive culture, and they need to learn what the warrior way is when they're here.
Right. Yeah, well said. Exactly.
When we were out campaigning for the bond, one of the things that parents said more often than not, having an old building is not major as long as it's safe, but having a clean old building is major.
Right.
Because they want their children to make sure that they're in a safe, clean environment, no matter how old it is.
Right.
And so I think that becomes our major goal. How clean will the buildings be?
Yes, sir.
Operated by outsourcing.
Mm-hmm. All right. So next slide, if I might. This is just a graphic visualization of the data, the numbers you just saw. And again, you see the downward trend. Next slide, please. This is the final slide, just future steps. My next step, and I've discussed this, Mr. Smith and I have had conversations about this. These are the 3 campuses that will be operating come 2021. The goal is to move into the 712 over spring break of 2021. The building should be ready December of 2020, ready to move in February, so we can begin prepping, and then actual move in during that school year. That's the 2020-2021 school year. The K-6 campus is set to be opened in August of 2021, and the preschool village will have to be remodeled once we move the fifth, because currently it's occupied by 5th and 6th graders. We'll move them out into the new K-6. Effective by June of that 2021, we can start working on preschool village. In addition, there will be pending board's decisions, potential demolitions going on at that time. Every building we operate that's not serving students costs us about somewhere in the neighborhood of $45,000 to $50,000 a year, just to keep the lights on, keep the windows repaired, keep the gas running to the boilers, keep the insurance, lawn care, all of that. So we'll obviously move with whatever the board's long-term land usage plan is, but we will have these 3 campuses to operate. We're going to have to operate these differently than we do now. That means redoing the way we clean, redoing the way we provide maintenance. The first 2 buildings are going to be incredibly smart. They're filled with advanced systems. We'll get an alarm that can come up as an alert on our phone when the sump pump in the elevator activates itself. So these buildings are a different level. You can't just have somebody turning wrenches in these buildings. They have to be able to read screens and then go find the sensor and then see if it's functioning correctly. So all that to say, we need to do a custodial workloading study for the new schools, so that'll be a project for me. I'm proposing at this time, and Mr. Smith's recommendation is a 2-year contract extension with Scarlett and Gray to bridge from where we are now until the new construction completion, at which time we can evaluate. Do we want to renew again, or do we want to go out for RFP? There's certainly a case to be made for that. And that's the last bullet, is potential requests for RFP, for requests for proposals for custodial services in 2021. Very good.
Mr. Denny, I did have a question with the.
Yes, ma'am.
The new school buildings, when we move in, I'm assuming that there has to be a very deep cleaning, initially. So I'm not sure what that cost would be, but I'm sure that would be a higher initial cost to first start.
Absolutely. You're absolutely accurate. And that is not provided by the CM, the construction management firm. So that will be something that we will have to address, and we'll try to do it in the most cost-effective way we can. I would say it's probably going to be analogous to the cost you're seeing for summer cleaning, which is between $80,000 and $100,000 typically.
And will the demolition of the existing older buildings cause extra work for the new to keep the area clean, and how would?
I'm going to repeat the question back to you. Tell me if I'm
Yeah.
understanding. You're saying when we go to demolish the buildings, is that going to impact the cleaning of the buildings that are about to be demolished, or the
Well,
grounds per se? Or?
Yeah, the grounds, the area, I'm sure it presents a challenge as that's being cleared away to keep the campus neat and orderly.
Because it's a side-by-side build. So you're specifically talking about middle school?
Yes.
With the K-6 and high school? Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's going to be, well, but the good news is we've watched this CM successfully do this in two neighboring districts. They did it in Fairfield, and they were actually closer than this one. And they've done it in Northwest. So they're good at it.
Okay.
Yeah. Dr. Cupoletti?
So your request for proposals for custodial services in 2021 needs to be informed by your choice of a person. It needs to be of a company. It needs to be informed by how well, for example, Scarlett and Gray is doing now, and what your expectations are for whoever.
Mm-hmm.
So what plans do you have to address that?
Well, I mean, I'm pending the decision this evening. I'll be calling the president tomorrow with news of some sort. And, you know, I've already had conversations with him about, you're basically going to have, just like you had a 3-year interview for this contract, you're going to have a 2-year interview for the next one, if that's, you know, because it's the board's option or it's the administration's option to not go out for RFP as well. but that's essentially an interview process, so.
In addition to that, Dr. Cupoletti, Mr. Denny and I have plans to meet with Scarlet and Gray and talk about our concerns, and hopefully those concerns will motivate them. If you want this contract in the future, there are some essential things that you have to do. Some people are satisfied with it. I'm never satisfied with anything. So there are some things that need to happen. I'd like to see a more gleam of the building, even though it's older. Make me happy when I walk through these buildings. I think Ms. Kuhn mentioned something very important. When there are scheduled events and activities, make these buildings look inviting to the public. They're older, but they can be spruced up. That's my point.
That's actually a great question. That was something that I wanted to know. What is the process for monitoring the quality of what it is that they're, of the services? Because I know, we have guests that's coming in, and do they have a schedule of times? Okay, well, we know when the schedule of an event is, so let's make sure those areas.
We spend a lot of time coordinating that.
Okay.
We've got a high school principal here this evening, and the myriad of events going on in his building, he could tell you that Mrs. Patterson and I spend an inordinate amount of time. We have Outlook calendars where everyone involved is invited to see those, and events are put on the Outlook calendars. There's facility there's facility use approval processes that the Scarlet and Gray is invited. They have access to there. So when we get an application which is online, it goes through an approval process. As soon as it's approved, it's put into these Outlook calendars. Everyone can see it. Do we still have misses? Yeah. There's so many events going on. They shouldn't be big ones. If there's a board meeting, it needs to be clean. If there's, a prom, homecoming, big events, those typically aren't the misses. It's more the facility use things or something where someone's using something that's already in their building and we just didn't happen to know. That's more common. And it disrupts the cleaning schedule, and sometimes something doesn't get cleaned because that happens. But we work a lot to make sure that occurs. And Wayne Chin, who's our custodial supervisor, does assist heavily in monitoring any issues that come up or spot checking things like, hey, the locker room got missed. And then he has a conversation with the supervisor a conversation with the cleaners. So there is a process, yeah.
I think
No,
the one thing
appreciate it.
Mr. Denny mentioned, and I hope that the board considers is that, I think he's a very efficient business manager, and he's going to be very deliberate to say, if you want this contract, this is your audition to go into the new buildings. The RFP process is something that we should do anyway. I think we should always be looking to figure out how to better our environment.
Can I add one thing, or one additional question? Each building has an administrator, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And will they have a role in this?
The administrators, I think it's very ironic that you asked that, Dr. Cupoletti, because the administrators will have a very, very important role, because we're going to get feedback from them. Tell us how your buildings look. They're the people that are opening the door every morning to guests, and they need to give us some feedback. This is what I see, and this is what I'm happy with or not satisfied. They are nice people, but they have a critical intent about what they see, because they want the environment to be right.
That concludes the presentation. I'm
Very
happy
good,
to
Mr.
entertain
Chairman.
any other questions that you may have.
Do you have anything else to add, Mr. Smith?
No, Madam President. So the recommendation is to approve the Scarlet and Gray contract as presented.
Okay, board of motion would be in order.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Scarlet and Gray contract as presented.
Second.
It's been motion and seconded, and we've already pretty much asked Mr. Denny quite a few questions and made statements. But is there
Otherwise, we
anything
think
else?
Mr. Denny is Scarlet and Gray,
Yeah,
don't we?
right. Is there anything else? If not, then, Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Dr. Cupoletti?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggless?
Aye.
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Dr. Johnson?
Aye. That vote passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is 10.10, the second read for revised board policy. Superintendent Smith, it's back to you.
I am well aware, Madam President and Board, that you guys have read these policies very, very carefully, and this is the second read. Policy 3362, professional staff anti-harassment. Policy 5517, students anti-harassment. Policy 5610, students removal, suspensions, expulsion, and permanent exclusion of students. Policy 5610, students alternative school assignment. 5610.03, students emergency removal of school. 5611, students due process rights. 6325, finances, procurement, federal grants. And finally, 8141, operations, mandatory reporting of misconduct by licensed employees. I'd like to jump back to the removal suspension 5610. When you were reading the policy, there's a notation. Students who are suspended must be given current work in order to keep up with their peers. That is not an option that the teachers have a discretion. They have to do it. It is not something, well, I might want to do it for him and not her. It is mandatory. So the recommendation is to approve the revised policies as presented.
Thank you, Superintendent Smith. Board, a motion would be in order.
I'll make a motion to approve the revised board policies as presented.
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Are there any questions for discussion? I would like to just, it's noteworthy that many of the changes that are being made are either driven by Neola or ORC. So they're standard, and anybody who has this policy is probably updating it as well, so.
For the public, Dr. Johnson, ORC, Ohio Revised Code.
Ohio Revised Code, thank you.
See, you're using more acronyms
Yes,
than
I'm
me now,
sorry.
so you got the acronym.
I have to stop. That's what I have to do.
It's contagious.
I have to stop. That's just it. Thank you. Ohio Revised. These are just driven by that, so, it's just noteworthy that we didn't just pull these out of our hat and start changing them.
Yes, ma'am.
They're driven by a force bigger than us. So, are there any other, discussion? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Dr. Capuletti?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Douglas?
Aye.
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Dr. Johnson?
Aye. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is 11.01, which is the Board of Education reports and legislative report. Mrs. Kuhn, as our legislative liaison, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I had forwarded to your email, I didn't print it out this month, but information Mr. Smith gets from his liaison with the legislative organization. It's very helpful. I'll let you look through it. I know they're looking at budgets and they're looking at still revisions for graduation requirements. I'd like to report that they had come to a conclusion on these, but they're still working on them. So you can read through them. They're busy working on them, so there's nothing particular to report yet.
There was one thing I think I read in there about mental health counseling or something, so that might be noteworthy. Yeah, so.
And
Okay.
that concludes my report.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Kuhn. The next item on the agenda is 11.02, the Great Oaks Career Technical Center report. Mr. Birdie, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. At the last board meeting for the Great Oaks, prior to that, they had actually done a signing day with some of the students and identified employers that some of the students had gotten jobs with. And I am going to take a minute here and kind of read through these to give the students as well as the employers some some props here. Fatima Allegra Avalos, Early Childhood Education. She got a job with Agape Children's Center. Kiara Bess in Health Technology has a job with Sanctuary Point Nursing and Rehab Center. Joyce Binden with Health Technology has a job with Madeira Village Nursing and Rehab. Vershawn Flowers Ingram, Commercial Residential Electricity, has a job with Ohio Valley Electric. Brianna Green, Early Childhood Education, a job with Jelly Bean Junction. Nicholas Parks, Veterinary Assistant, Animal Care Center of Forest Park. Jada Ray, Health Technology, Sanctuary Point Nursing and Rehab Center. Irena Serber, Cosmetology, Mitchell's Salon and Day Spa. And Faye Weber, Health Technology, Glendale Place Nursing and Rehab Center. And I know Mr. Snyder, the CEO President of Great Oaks, was very happy. The employers showed up for much of this, and they're looking for it to be even a bigger event, I believe, next year. So it's really a nice thing that they've done. Also, we have in the students in the spotlight, we have a Winton Woods student at Cincinnati Children's Hospital. Christopher Berner has secured employment in the scheduling department at Cincinnati Children's Hospital as well. So,
Fantastic. Mr. Birdie, I saw the audience, when you mentioned the Jelly Bean Junction, people were just smiling. They were excited about that.
and that is my report.
Thank you, Mr. Birdie. The next item on the agenda is 12.01, which is the board motions recommendations. Are there any items up for discussion? Board? I don't have any. Seeing none, we'll just move on to the next item on the agenda, which is 13.01, which is comments from the member of the Board of Education. And Mr. Smith, could we start with you?
Yes, Madam President, I believe that the,
Oh, I'm sorry, 14.01, I'm sorry. I got the number wrong on that one.
yeah, I believe the community at large realizes about the tragic situation in Trotwood. And right now, they have about 360 plus students that may have to be displaced and attend school somewhere else. I'd like to have the board consider us doing something special with Trotwood. I know that most of the support is gone now. And if we could bring up the rear and do something special with that district, I think it would be noteworthy. If it were us, we would need that support as well. We actually play Trotwood the first game of the season. And, taking our band and our football team and our fans for a football competition is one thing, but I think it would be really noteworthy if we could do something prior to. And I think that I would like to see if the board would consider doing something like that. I don't have the plans already in mind. My community engagement coordinator has already worked those out. But I just think that we are part of this thing. Their kids are our kids. They just happen to be educated in a different place. And I think that's the difference in how we serve our public and serve our communities. So.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mrs. Kuhn, you have anything?
I wanted to say thank you to our administrators for going out and meeting the needs of our community on the mission, feeding our community. We're excited. I know there's my fellow board mates are excited about that opportunity to get out and see our students in action during the summer. So we're very excited about that. I wish everyone a good, happy summer. I guess it'll quit raining one day. I'm glad it hasn't affected our, I'm glad it hasn't slowed down, knock on wood here, our construction. So again, thank you very much. So.
Thank you, Mrs. Kuhn. Mr. Birdie?
I'd like to thank Dr. Holden for her service, because I know you were called on to do many presentations to the board during meetings here, and we could always tell, I think, your passion for what you do, and
Absolutely.
Yellow Springs is, good for them. Sorry for our loss, but I know you're doing something that you enjoy to do and have a passion for doing. So congratulations and thank you for everything you've done for the Winton Woods School District. Mr. Denny, Mr. Doctor, Nutrition is the Mission Bus, everybody administratively, staff that was involved in this. I don't think the community generally thinks about the children during the summertime that don't have a place to get something to eat. And it's not something I've been aware of my entire life. It kind of came to me through something I did about 10 years ago that, you find out, wow, you got St. John's handing out sandwiches through a window during the summer to kids, because that's the only place that the ones in that community. And to be able to take that to the kids and get them closer to where they are is something fantastic that I think the school district's doing. So thank you all for everything involved in that. Thank you for the Scarlet and Gray history lesson there, and that information too. That was very helpful. And I just, thank you, administration, teachers, everything you all do, and everybody have a safe summer.
Thank you. Dr. Cupoletti?
Yes, I had the opportunity to attend a district team leaders meeting, and at that meeting I learned that the faculty, the teachers, have a special program where those students who are falling behind get special help. And they use technology on the one hand to make that happen. And on the other hand, they use a lot of their time and energy and thought processes. And because of that program, the students can catch up. As an educator, I wish I had the resources to do that when I was teaching. And I'm really pleased to see that Winton Woods is doing that. And the community should be very pleased to see that nobody is allowed to fail. And that's really gratifying.
Thank you, Dr. Capoletti. Mrs. Ruggles?
Dr. Holden, congratulations. And I want to tell you thank you for being open to all of my questions and sometimes even pushing on some of the issues and academic issues and being open. And that was, when you came to the district, that was a different reception to questions. So I thank you for that, and I wish you all the luck as you go on and do great things in Yellow Springs. As far as the nutrition is the mission and what Mr. Smith said about Troutwood, I just, if you know anything about me, I love community. And as we look at the mission of the nutrition bus going out to the community, we can't pick and choose the children we serve. We just have to make sure that we provide services and invest in the things that's going to make a difference in the lives of the children that we serve. So that feeling of community is really huge. And as far as Troutwood, I think that is a great suggestion, because we cannot be bound by our geographical locations for our community. Our community is the world. We have to make sure that if we are able to touch children and we have resources to do so, I'm game. So Mr. Smith, I'm on board for reaching out and touching Troutwood. And Mrs. Denny, I need my date for the truck, because I can't remember, and I think we really.
You mean the bus?
For the bus.
Nutrition.
Did I say the truck?
Yeah, the truck.
I meant the bus.
Yes,
I meant-
Mrs., you're scheduled to drive it 2 weekends straight, I think.
Since it's a truck.
Well, let's get it
Trotwood.
out. Okay. I think it might be great to reach out to some of our folks over at Mercy's, Mrs. Hawk. I'm calling you out on camera to come and see what we're doing in the district. I think it'll be great. I'll see you soon, Mrs. Hawk.
Thank you. Thank you. Challenge.
Challenge.
Hey, listen, this has been a great meeting. We've had two of our very distinguished administrators promoted into a different position, which I'm sure they're going to do a masterful job. We're sending Dr. Holden on to a new adventure, and we have a lot of things, even though it's summer, still going on in our district. You would think the school is still going on, but we still have a lot going on. And I talked to some people in other school districts, and they say, oh, well, we don't meet during the summer months, but we still meet during the summer months, and we still have our regular meetings and our work sessions, and work still goes on, and the preparation for serving the children needs to happen when the children aren't here, so that's what we're doing. So we absolutely appreciate everything that everyone does for the district. We can't say thank you enough. Sometimes thank you doesn't seem like enough, but we do. The board, each and every one of us, really appreciate all of the time that you have given to this district. I can't figure out why our nutrition is the mission bus hasn't made it to Channel 9 News. Everything else seems to make it, or Channel 12 or Channel 19, but that's a whole different story. Waycross is they have us covered. So we appreciate that. So shout out to Waycross, because it is a fantastic thing, and I don't think anybody else is doing it. you know? I think that, we're on the right track. We just appreciate the leadership that we do get from Mr. Smith and Mr. Seymour in being forward-thinking and coming up with ways to continue to address our students and to meet our mission, the district's mission for our students. With that said, we've already went into one executive session. We will not go into a second executive session. Are all minds clear here on the board? Okay, thank you, Waycross community, for your service in videotaping tonight's meeting. With that said, I'll call this meeting of the Winton Woods City School Board of Education regular meeting Monday, June the 24th, 2019 adjourned, and thank you. Be safe and have a great summer.
Yes.